Thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with your host, Prophetess T.
All right, you're on.
Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on God's green earth. I want to thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it is your time to shine. I am so excited about tonight, you guys. Remember, I've been talking to you about it being okay to not be okay sometimes. Well, tonight we're going to revisit that conversation. Sometimes it's where we're at a point where not just having the Bible and praying and talking to God is enough. Sometimes you can use somebody in the natural to kind of assist you through the resetting and the renewing of your mind and also dealing with your healing process. So tonight we're going to have a conversation with a group of panelists, and you have to be patient. I want to give y'all time to come in, and tonight's show is going to run a little longer than usual. And for that reason, I want to make sure that I give reverence where reverence is due, because if it was not for Endure Entertainment Network, the television network that broadcast our live broadcast, I wouldn't be able to extend the program a little longer tonight for our panelists. So I want to thank Endure Entertainment, who always has one vision, one goal in mind, and that is to inspire. And then I want to also give a shout out to the rest of our sponsors. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Clean Queen. If you are in the state of Kentucky and you have a home or an apartment or a business that you need decluttered or reorganized, or maybe you need to get your home move-in ready or move out ready, check out the Clean Queen. Her information, where you can reach her at, is listed on the layout. Make sure you tell her that Prophetess T sent you, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I love when she comes through this place. All right. And our next sponsors, we're talking about Underground T-shirts. These people are the bomb.com, y'all. They can do anything that you need done to your T-shirts, sweatshirts. They have a plethora of items that they also put information on, like your logos or little sayings, catchphrases, or whatever. Their information is right there on the layout. Also, they are on Facebook. Make sure you follow them and like them. And all the T-shirts that y'all see me wearing, the majority of the time, they are the ones who created for me. So I appreciate everything that they do. Check them out. That's Underground T-shirts. And then our next sponsor is Digital's Custom Builds. They can hook you up if you need a gaming system put together, or maybe you need some debugging or some upgrading done to your own computer system. Nick Walker is the dude for you. And I'm telling you, he works magic. You do not have to be in the state of Kentucky for it to happen for you. He will ship out of state and across country. And that's the same for Underground T-shirts as well. So make sure you hit him up if you have any computer needs that he could take care of for you. And then our newest sponsor, I appreciate these people. Honey, y'all think Starbucks is something, y'all got to check out Mountain Mike's. Mountain Mike's does anything that Starbucks does and better. They're in Glendale, Kentucky. Make sure you tell them that T sent you. They really have some nice teas, smoothies, iced coffees. Like I said, anything that you can find at Starbucks, you can pretty much find there. Um, I apologize. There's a lot going on in the background tonight. So y'all just hang in there with me. Make sure you follow all these people that I listed on their Facebook pages, Mountain Mike's, Underground T-shirts, and Digital Customs Bill, and the Clean Queen. They're all on Facebook. All righty then. Okay. So you guys, we're talking about tonight It being okay to have Jesus, but also a therapist. I want to reiterate that to you. Sometimes we need additional help to help get us through this attack that we have in our brain. You know, that conversation you have with this voice and reality. Sometimes you need somebody that can help you sort out those things. Sometimes when we try to, express ourselves, we've got so much going on that we can't make it make sense. And there are people, believe it or not, that God has assigned in this earth that can help you process what's going on in your head. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I got a couple of them in my head, that sometimes want to have conversations with me that I know ain't all copacetic. Everything ain't truth that my mind tries to tell me. So sometimes I have found myself in a situation where I have to get with somebody who I can feel comfortable in, that's not going to judge me, but can help walk me through the process of dealing with these mindsets that I might have, false narrative about myself. For instance, if you've grown up in a situation where you've been degraded all your life or been told that you won't amount to nothing, you can't do nothing, it's impossible for you to achieve. When you start hearing them negative narratives, you really take on those mantles as if they're your truths. And sometimes that can be spread down through generations after generations after generations. So I have found a group of people. I thank God for connections that are willing to share some of their time this evening with you guys, so that we can talk about, what it takes to get in therapy. What is therapy like? Even sharing some of their experiences. You know what? I know therapists that have therapists. At least my husband always told me every therapist should have a therapist. After dealing with us in our several voices, right? you probably need to disconnect too. So everybody needs somebody to feel like there's a safe place and that we can have conversations with. And I want to introduce you to some people that I truly believe would be an asset to you. And we're going to have some raw conversations. I'm going to ask some questions, y'all, because you know me, I got a mouth that God has gifted me with, so I'm going to talk about it. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit about some of the guests that we're going to have come on. And guys, they are still coming in. I keep forgetting that we're on Eastern time and my guests are on Central time. So we had a little miscommunication. But who I had reached out to is a young lady that I've known for several years. She used to work with Danny, and I also volunteered at the homeless shelter where she was actually doing some therapy there herself. Her name is Christina French. She is an LCSW. And if you guys don't know what that stands for, then you're going to tell me, because I didn't. Licensed clinical social worker. I am slow like molasses, y'all. She's got 20 plus years experience. She also owns a company that she just started, Harmony Holistic Healing Center, LLC. She also works with a telehealth company as well. And then we'll have Laura Prado. She's a licensed social worker that also used to work with Danny at Hezit House, which is out of Aurora, Illinois. She's going to be sharing some information with us and having a conversation with us too. Another panelist that we'll be bringing on will be Jennifer Bell. She's another social worker. She'll be coming in later on towards the end. And then we have a fabulous person, Mr. Dewan Wash, who is a civil activist. He'll be sharing some information with us as far as what he does with Christina and so forth. And also we'll have a psychologist on, Shannon Fields. So you guys, let's get ready to have some of these conversations. I'm still waiting for okay. I'm still waiting for Christina to get in, but some of her guests have beat her in. So I'm gonna start conversation without Christina. Is that all right? Is that all right? All right. So do me a real quick favor, you guys, before we get started, because this is good tea. This is good tea, y'all. Hit that share button at the bottom of the screen. Share to your groups. Go get your auntie, cousin, and them other voices that you've been talking to, that's been talking crazy to you, and invite them into this conversation. Can you guys do that real quick for me? Go ahead, hit that share button at the bottom of your screen and invite. Hello, hello to all of you that tuned in. I appreciate you. Love you guys. Share, please share on your page. We're getting ready to have good tea tonight. We're going to have some good conversation. So, the first guest that I want to pull in that's sitting backstage behind the scenes, listening to me talk crazy and probably afraid now. um, we got us. Who's one of the guests? Did you say? Laura. Oh, good. She's already on. I don't know if she remembers me or not. Laura Prado. Hi. Oh
Hi.
my God.
Hi.
I don't know if you remember me or not. I was a whole lot bigger. I come up there and volunteer sometimes with Danny.
I don't recall you, but then of course I have been,
It's
but
okay.
it's been a very, very long time.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I'm talking maybe 10 plus years, almost like 13 plus years. And so it's
Tell
been a
everybody
long
our
time for
ages.
me.
Well, it is good to see you again. I
Good to see
appreciate
you
you
too.
giving up your time and
Yeah,
coming on
absolutely.
with us. I know we have Dewan is, I hope I'm saying his name right, backstage as well. But I'm going to steal you for a little bit. And when he comes back,
Sure.
I'll
My
pull,
pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for considering me to be a part of this panel. This is the first time that I've done this, so this is pretty awesome, and it's an opportunity for me to share a perspective as a Latina living in a community, you know, of predominantly white people. And so it's a privilege for me to share my perspective to the best of my ability. So thank you for thinking of me.
I appreciate you. And, this is a good conversation to have, anyways, of a people of ethnicity, because in reality, my growing up as a child, we didn't talk about what happened in the house. Whatever happens at
Okay.
home stays at
Stays
home.
at home. Yes.
So a lot of things went on, even through generations previously, that were not discussed. And had I known about those things, could have helped me probably possibly heal a whole lot sooner than I
Gotcha.
did, because I didn't realize a lot of stuff had been passed down from generation to generation
Right.
that I experienced in my life. So
Right.
I appreciate you coming and willing to share, because this is something that us as a community need to learn, that it's okay to talk about it. You
Right.
know, it's okay
Absolutely.
to go to therapy.
Right.
You don't have, you hear so many bad things about therapists.
Right.
So I appreciate you willing to give up your time. Is
Thank you.
Dewan back, Danny? Can we pull him in as well? Okay. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. I am so excited, you guys. You don't understand. So if I'm very talkative, it's because I'm nervous, because I'm intimidated by my audience. But I appreciate you guys sharing some of your knowledge with our guests, because we really need to have these conversations
Yeah.
with our people. You know, I am all about Jesus. I am all about God. I believe God is the center and the answer to it all, but I also know that there's conversations that we don't have. The church don't always exercise and sharing things with everybody. So I'm about getting us out there and letting us know that we got to talk about, we have to have these conversations so that we can heal as a community
Right.
and as individuals in whole. So Dewan, I appreciate you for willing to give up your time. And before I pull well, Danny, are you still there? Hey girl. Christina, how you? Did she get her
There
sound
she is.
right? So can you tell them a
I'm
little
trying to
bit
figure out
about
how to get in here. Hello, everyone.
all
Hi,
right.
Tina.
So I'm gonna ask if you guys don't mind taking like a minute to share briefly a little bit about you
Hello?
and what you're bringing to the
Hello?
table. Danny, did you?
We can hear you.
She was having trouble with her sound earlier too when I was talking to her. Laura, you want to go
Hold
first,
on one
and
second.
then Dewan?
Sure. Absolutely. So my
Thank
name
you,
is
Mom.
Laura Prado, and I've been in the field of social work for maybe 15 plus years. And I started my career working as a social worker at Hesed House. I was their bilingual case manager. And so that was a wonderful experience for me, never being exposed, to that type of, demographics was very interesting. That was awesome. And then after that, I worked as a counselor at 2 inpatient hospital settings, and so that was very interesting for me as well. And then I learned a lot there too. And then from there, I started to work at a private practice out in Crystal Lake. It's called the Center for Courageous Living, and I'm their Hispanic therapist there. And so I'm able to utilize, my bilingual skills. I'm able to utilize all of the experience that I've gained from working at Hesed House and as a counselor at 2 hospital settings. And so I've been doing that for maybe a little over a year. And so the private practice that I work for is actually Christian based. And it's very interesting, but I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of clients that are kind of not understanding, like therapy and Christianity. I'm finding that they are feeling guilty for seeing me as a therapist, and they're fearing that, their faith maybe is not big enough. They're fearing that, is God not answering their prayer? What is it in their lives that maybe there's some sin in there where, God is not healing this like sense of anxiety or depression? And so I have the privilege of sharing with them that, yes, you love the Lord, you are a strong follower of Jesus Christ, you're doing the right things. But when we're talking about mental health, it's different. It's not that you are not, strong in faith. It's not that the Lord is not answering your prayer, but it's simply you need to utilize your coping skills to be able to manage your anxiety or depression, right? And so we talk about therapeutic skills that can help them, and it has nothing to do with their faith. And it's just incredible that we're getting these messages at church. It's like, why are you in therapy? Why are you seeking a therapist? You have your Bible. That's all you need.
Or why are you taking medication? You should have faith.
Right. And they're telling me time and time again how it's like their eyes have been opened. It's like they realize that they're strong in the Lord. God loves them. They love the Lord, but they're glad that they're learning what therapy is and what's a coping skill versus prayer, how it helps them to feel better throughout their lives. And so it's been really, really eye-opening to see how many people are mixing those two, and there's confusion and there's a disconnect.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Sir, Mr. Wash, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Can you share a little bit about yourself with my audience as well? Oh, Danny, did we lose him? He is so awesome. He just bounced out the system. Well, all right. Well, Tina, we'll just jump right into you.
Okay. All right. All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Harmon. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I go by Tina for short. So you can feel free to call me Tina. Everybody knows Tiny Tina.
And she's tiny, y'all. I mean, she's like tiny and tiny.
Literally.
Like she's a little people. You don't have to tell them that. Okay. Nobody knows on telehealth. This is the great thing about telehealth. Nobody knows how tall I am. I look average height.
Okay.
Here comes the one.
Sorry.
You are so awesome, man of God. You just jumped off the screen.
You gotta bounce.
Man, yeah. So for me, I am a community organizer. Community organizer now for the better part of a decade. Tina and I actually have this client relationship. So I'm coming from the perspective of someone that has benefited from therapy. Speaking on some of the things that you all have mentioned, I still have a lot of hurt around the church. Being Black, gay, and as someone that organizes around race relations, and different issues that communities of color and lower income communities space, I faced a lot more discrimination for being Black and gay at church than I did anything else, right? And so for me,
Hey, Dewan, we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you, so you're breaking up like every other word.
oh,
Do you have your earpods you can put in? Maybe that'll help you.
I do. Give me a second.
Okay. Um, so you guys, I hope I wanted y'all to have a little bit of flavor of everything in this conversation, because we need to have these conversations, you guys, for real. And a lot of healing also needs to be done within the body of Christ. Can y'all feel me? So you still have an opportunity to invite people into the podcast as we prepare to go forth, and we're going to share some different perspectives. Now let me tell you guys, eat what you need to eat and spit out the bone. Amen. Don't catch attitudes, because I got one too. Amen. We're about love, and this is a safe place. So I brought these people here to have a conversations with you guys, and we're going to be open and transparent with you guys, because we want you to heal too, because there's some of you that are secret closet doing stuff, self-medicating and getting up in the pulpit and preaching. And other things. So let's have a real conversation, because if we're honest with people about our struggles, about some of the battles that we have within ourselves, we can get healed as a community to have a healthy relationship and actually love the way God meant for us to love. Amen. Amen goes right there. Welcome back, brother. Are we good now, you think?
Can y'all hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, I appreciate being invited into the space, because I do think that it is important to talk about the hurt that occurs not only in the church but in our homes. You touched on a lot of that earlier. With some of the things that I've been able to have to face growing up, dealing with parents that were substance users or substance sellers, dealing with sexual abuse, for long periods of time. All of these things that we aren't supposed to talk about. Like you said, what happens in the house stays in the house. Being looked at as crazy because you got a therapist, and it's like, well, where else am I supposed to talk about this stuff, and how am I supposed to cope with this stuff if I have no healthy outlet to do it? So as you mentioned earlier with substance abuse, I've struggled and dealt with a lot of these different issues, but these are things that have a lot of stigma that are associated with them when you discuss them openly and in the public. You even deal with people that say, oh yeah, we're against the stigma until it's you.
Come on.
And when it's you, it then becomes a problem. So I appreciate being able to have this sort of open and candid conversations about the benefits of therapy and why it's important and necessary for people, particularly of importance for folks that are doing work in the community and that are therapists themselves, because as you mentioned earlier, also with the generational trauma, because we are working with other people who have been through trauma and are dealing actively with trauma, we have to also find ways and means to serve as an outlet to release some of that trauma that we also take on as we have conversations.
And that is really good, because we know hurt people hurt people. So if we're going to heal the earth, we got to get healed for real, for real. And we got to have these conversations in order for, even when they are not comfortable.
Right.
I also noticed that Shannon Fields has come on, so I want to pull him in too. Hello, Shannon. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am really good. I'm having everybody go around and pretty much introduce themselves and talk about themselves. Tina, we'll come back to you a little bit. So, Mr. Fields, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Well, my name is Shannon Fitz. Right now, I currently work in the school setting. I work with Montessori schools. Prior to that, I worked at River Edge Hospital. I was a mental health counselor there. And then prior to that, I worked at a therapeutic day school.
All right. Well, you're good and to the point. Hey, everybody that's on, once again, make sure you're sharing this post and pulling in people that could benefit from this conversation because we're going to talk about it. Please, you guys, I brought them in so we can have a conversation. That means that T don't need to carry everything. Amen. So I noticed, hi, Miss Riley, ¿cómo estás? She says, being a Latina, I struggled with my faith in God being questioned or sending a message that I don't have enough faith in God. And
Laura, that one's for you.
go ahead.
If you can repeat the question again, just because you kind of cut out.
Miss Francis, she's from Puerto Rico. She said, I have struggled with my faith in God being questioned or sending a message that I don't have enough faith in God.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to encourage her and let her know that has nothing to do with her faith and love for God. That if she's struggling with mental health and she does not know what is going on, it has absolutely nothing to do with her faith. She loves the Lord. It sounds like, she's very, faithful in her walk with the Lord. And it's very, very important to realize that seeing a therapist is key. They are the ones that could lead you towards learning coping skills, learning about generational trauma, learning habits that were formed in early childhood. Was there neglect? Was there emotional abuse? Was there lack of awareness and things like that? And so identifying those things are key. It does not mean that you don't love the Lord. It doesn't mean that the Lord is not answering prayer. It just means that God is leading you to a place of furthering your understanding, as God has blessed, women or therapist, male or female, with the knowledge, of therapy, and utilizing that for your benefit and saying, thank you, God, for what I'm learning. Thank you, God, for, walking me or walking with me through this journey, and not seeing it as, oh, you're not faithful, or, oh, you're not right with God. And so God's just kind of like, ooh, what's going on here? So I just want to encourage her with that.
All right, Tina, before we get into, because I've got some topics I want to discuss with you. Before we get into it, can you share a little bit about yourself as well?
Sure. I enjoy hearing my colleagues, actually, so it's nice. My name is, like I said, Christina Harmon. I go by Tina for short. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been in the field for about 20 years now. I started off working with teen. My mother ran a teen mothers group. It was called MIM. It was a young mothers program in Naperville, and I would babysit the infants while she would do groups. And so my mom also was a facilitator for the IRS EEO facilitator. So she would investigate complaints that people would make about people. So like kind of the Me Too stuff, she'd be the one that would be investigating that for the IRS. And she would run groups. So I say all that to say that I love running groups. I went to Aurora University and graduated in 2005 with a master's in social work. And that was a group-based program. We actually had a what we call a practicum, and we all met in Lake Geneva a couple weeks before the program started, and we all got together as a big cohort, all the new folks, and we did everything in groups. So everything is group. And I am a proponent of group therapy. I love group therapy. I think group therapy is something that it's been clinically proven to accelerate the process of healing. In addition, in combination with individual therapy, and if you need one, a psychiatrist. But we like to start off with therapy first. So I graduated from NIU, which is where I met Shannon. He was psychology major, and I was sociology major. So we also both minored in Black studies. So we overlapped there a lot with a lot of our classes in philosophy. So we became fast friends. Immediately the first day we met on the elevator at NIU. I met Shannon my first day at NIU on an elevator. I was drinking coffee going to 8 a.m. I think it was like an aerobics class or something, dreading it. And Shannon was there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, early in the morning, ready to go. He's like, what are you drinking that coffee for? That was the first.
He probably thought you were somebody's shop. Anyways, let's Okay, I'll stop picking on her.
They don't know how short I am, T.
look, look. Okay, I need to stop. But she has to do therapy because I'm picking on her.
I am very tiny. I'm only 4'9", full disclosure.
I love her, but man,
Thank you. I love you too.
Hey, don't let her height fool you because she's a beast.
I'm tiny, but I'm mighty.
Yes, she is. So, guys, I appreciate you once again being willing to give up your time and to share some information with us. And Duane, I appreciate you most of all. And I want to say that because you're willing to share your experience on what it is like to be in therapy. I know for me, just starting out, you guys, I went through several therapists before I found the right therapist.
Yeah.
And I know that can be frustrating as well. So, Duane, can you share a little bit about how your experience has been?
Definitely. I think that that's important to find someone that fits and molds with you. Being a black gay man in America, I found, I started out with white therapists. Just be honest. But, how can I talk to a white person about my experience as a black person? They don't know my walk. They don't know my struggle. So, that wasn't a good fit for me. I struggle with dealing with male therapists. Being a gay man, I'm more comfortable working with women. Particularly I lost my mother at a young age to drug addiction. So, she wasn't in the picture. I miss my mama, honestly. So I have a better relationship getting and hearing and feeling my mother through the therapist that I've been able to identify with. I also work in the social justice field, so I needed someone that had a idea of what social justice is. I needed to have someone that I felt like I could be fully authentic with and wouldn't be judgmental of me and would understand all of the struggles that I have to face both personally and professionally. Because for me, I can be addicted to work just like I could be addicted to other things. So important for me to be able to identify somebody that would help me heal on a whole level as opposed to just compartmentalizing my healing.
And I think that is awesome, you guys. I know, Duane, for me, like I said, it took me like several therapists to finally get with somebody who really fit me. Um, for you therapists, you guys with degrees, um, how do you determine what client works well with you? Because is there ever a point where you're with a client that maybe you feel you're not working well with? Do you suggest them seeing somebody else? Is that an option?
100% yes. That has happened with me before. I can answer that definitely. And I didn't get to mention I own my own private practice, Harmony Holistic Healing. And in my private practice, I can be very selective because I own it, so I talk about that. And I talked about that with Duane. He can vouch when he comes back in. That's one of the things that we talked about. We were up at about 3 a.m. messaging each other on emails back and forth. He was actually looking for someone who specializes in what's called EMDR, and it's a special trauma treatment. And that was something that he was looking for. And I know someone who is already trained, who's going to train me in that, but I'm not qualified. It worked out that he came to me anyway, just because he liked the interaction that he said. He's like, well, I like you, so I want to come see you. And I'm like, well, I'm not trained in EMDR though yet. I will be, but I'm not there yet, And so he was like, that's okay. So his story, even in coming to me, is kind of interesting, right, Duane? Because what he was coming to me for, specifically what he was looking for, he ended up not necessarily getting. He'll get it eventually.
For me, it was the accessibility. I needed help right then and there, and she was accessible. I think that's a thing that's also important to point out is accessibility. Will this person be there? Because all of us got somebody that says, if you need me, call me. I'll be there. If you need help, I'm here for you. But how many times has that failed? How many times has that not actually happened? To where when you need that person isn't there. And so with Tina, she's accessible anytime. Anytime I need help,
Literally.
I can call, and it's not a problem. Now, I mean, she probably may be rolling her eyes at me, if I'm calling her at 3 in the morning. Ain't no telling. I know I would. I'm definitely gonna be side eyeing some people at 3 o'clock in the morning if you're calling me.
You
But
know I'm up.
I never feel that, right? I never get the impression that I'm a burden.
No,
You know,
of course not.
I always get the impression that she's accessible to me and that she's there as a resource, which I think is something that is important for folks out there seeking therapists.
Guys, I hate to interrupt, but we got questions coming, so
We're
I don't
good.
want to leave our audience out. Drew actually had a good one. He said it's hard to accept therapy when you're told. Well, Danny's moving them. You're told to put your problems in God's hands. Okay, so this, how would you handle this?
Laura, I'm gonna bet that one to Laura.
Oh, well, I would say that is one of the biggest misconceptions, right? It's like thinking that, you know, leave it in the Lord's hands, stop seeking other resources out there that can be helpful. I mean, unbelievably, I guess for me, I feel a sense of frustration because I'm hearing that more and more and more. And again, it has nothing to do with your faith. It really doesn't, other than, you are going to seek therapy to learn new ways of coping, learn more about your family dynamics, family of origin, habits, generational sin that's been going on for a really long time that you're not aware of, right? So that's psychoanalysis, right? So we go in, and ask a lot of questions, we probe, and we find out what are these core issues, what are the habits that were formed in early childhood, how were you talked to, what tone were you talked to, was there a sense of attunement to your emotional needs, right? And so as we discover these things, right, we learn about these things that are going on, and then you leave it to the Lord. You pray and you say, Lord, thank you so much for what I've learned in my family of origin. I put it in your hands, and I just thank you for letting me understand these things, and I pray that you will continue to stay with me throughout this journey. Right? So it's not like we're forgetting the Lord. It's not like we're saying he's not a part of this journey with us. Yeah, we need God, to help us through this journey so that we don't feel alone as we're learning about ourselves and as we're learning new coping skills, new understanding of our family of origin.
All right, we have another question for Shannon.
Real quick.
Shannon,
Oh, sorry about that.
it says, as a man, I feel less masculine talking about my feelings. How do you handle that? I imagine that is a big deal.
Well,
It actually is. I think that's the stigma that is put out there, along with not being able to access therapy because of religious beliefs. It's the thing. Men don't speak. Men don't share. Men hold everything in because we're supposed to be strong. And if we show sensitivity, then we're showing vulnerability, and we're not acting as perceived. And I think that's the total opposite of what a man is. I grew up with a very, very dominant male figure, which is my grandfather. Very quiet, very strong, very to himself. And I got to meet him later on in life when he had gone through a lot of his trials. He had his addictions like we all do, but then he ended up, finding God. So he was a little more open, and I think one of the most fulfilling things that I can remember as far as him is being a 12-year-old boy reading him the Bible.
Mm.
And he was a strong figure with these big, massive hands, like always in a suit, always distinguished. And he broke down to allow me to read to him because he couldn't read at the time. And I just thought that was the most admirable thing I had ever experienced, because he let me know early that a man can be vulnerable. You know, a man can show that sometimes we need help too, and we can let our guards down to allow you guys to come in and help us in areas where we are struggling. You know, we can't necessarily have this shield on every day. We're the physically strong ones, but sometimes deep down inside, we're hurting and we're struggling and we're just begging for some sort of help. And if you're not allowed to teach yourself or allow someone else to show you how to express that, that's when you start to break down from the inside, start to deteriorate from the inside, and then you start seeing these physical ailments. It's like, oh, this person was so strong, and then all of a sudden they just broke down.
Yeah.
There was a lot of years of holding things in because you couldn't let it out. And as we all know, anything that manifests in energy is real. So if you allow negative energy to enter your body and stay there, and you don't allow yourself to express or get help for that, it starts to break you down from the inside, and then it becomes a physical thing. So,
Shannon, I am so glad you brought that out, because I mean, that's one of the things, even, you know, as a minister of the gospel, that I know factual, that when I was 14, I had a lot of suicidal thoughts. My body actually started attacking me. Like, I had pain that I could not,
Yep.
they couldn't find nothing that would cause me to limp.
Psychosomatic. It's called psychosomatic.
I was reading a book just recently, and it touched on what you said. And basically, it was they did a study on people that were in a concentration camp, and they said they can determine by the study who was going to eventually die and how many days they had left based off of how they answered questions. When they mentally gave up, their body, their mind started to make their body manifest that thing, because the mind controls the body. So if the mind says I'm done, the body responds because it has to listen to the mind. So
Wow.
when you were saying that you felt like you didn't want to be here anymore, your body only did what you told it to do. And when you decided to switch that and turn it around, your mind sent the signal to your body that we're not done. We're still here in the fight, so we're still going to be strong. And then those ailments probably started going away for you. So
That, I mean, you just blew my mind. I never even thought that you're actually confessing that over yourself and making yourself sick.
yeah, that's why they
Um,
always say, be careful what you speak out loud. Be careful
yeah,
with your tongue.
Messy. You know, I think it's important to point this out because we live in a society that has a set idea of what gender roles are, right? It's supposed to be this way. The woman is supposed to be this way, even though in reality, our homes are rarely, situated to the idea of what we consider a man and a woman and a family to be. What we see on TV is not actually
right.
realities that we exist in. You know, something that was touched on earlier, I wanted to make a point in saying that faith without works is dead, right? So
Absolutely.
Amen.
when you have such a thing as, let go and let God, um, I think of the parable of the man in the flood that's on his roof. You know,
Just like
he
that.
comes by with the boat, and he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna let God come get me," and the water just keep on rising, and then the man come by with the helicopter and he lets down the rope and he tries to climb. He's like, "Nope, I'm gonna let God come get me," and then he drowns, and then when he get to heaven, God is like, "What are you talking about, man? I sent you a boat, a helicopter, So it's like what we've been taught in church, because what I've had to realize for myself is that I was taught wrong in church. I was taught about a hateful, vengeful, fire and brimstone God. I wasn't taught about a loving God. More so than I was taught about a God that was going to punish me and not one that was going to love me, because I wasn't getting love at home. So if I'm not getting love at home, I'm not getting love in my community, and I'm not getting love in my church, where am I going to get it from? especially as a man, right? And as Brother Shannon was talking about earlier, if it's not okay for me to process these feelings and for me to talk about this stuff, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna hurt other people. I'm gonna be harmful in my community. I'm gonna do all of these other things, right? That are temporary to make me feel good in the moment, while at the same time continuing to hurt myself. So I think it's important to break down those gender roles and understand that it's not always about the man leading the household or the man being, because being equally yoked means that not only am I well, but you're well also.
Right.
It's not about 50-50. No, we 100.
Right.
That's what I always say. I say the same thing to my
Love it.
right? You know, so I think it's important for us to kind of unpack some of the bad stuff that we've learned about who God is, and
Right.
understand that your who God is for that person that's that person's relationship with God. Has nothing to do with your relationship with God. That's something completely separate.
That part.
Amen.
That's right.
That's why we're having these conversations, because we need to learn truth. You do have to develop your own personal relationship, and it's going to look different depending on what you're bringing to the table. So Miss Francis had a really good question. And I'm talking about dealing with grief. She said something about not making others feel. She felt guilty, like she was making others feel.
She says, right now I feel like I'm a burden or making others feel sad or down with me. Oh, Francis. Can I take this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody jump in.
So Francis, I actually work with grief a lot in grief counseling, and how you're feeling is so normal. I want to do what we call normalizing in therapy. We're normalizing. That's very normal to feel like that. You are not a burden on anybody. That's just the thoughts that are in your head, and our mind plays tricks on us. Do 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 do, like the song, you know. So your mind is playing tricks on you. It's telling you these things because what happens when you're sad or when you're depressed is these negative thoughts start to creep up in our minds, right? So, and we all have them, and it's very normal. We all have negative thoughts, right? Like we all have thoughts that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not pretty enough, or handsome enough, or whatever. We're not enough, period. And so I think with grief, just understanding that how you're feeling is completely normal. And if you are feeling like that, all the more reason you should come to therapy.
Amen. Amen. Guys,
That's
you got
what we're
some
here
great
for.
questions. Drew had another statement. He said, how do you fight the mind when the thoughts are negative? How do you learn to have strength when you feel weak?
Shannon?
You get what you put out. I'll start by saying that. So, like Tina just said, everyone has those negative thoughts. The problem is we tend to focus more on the negative things because we're so focused on what we aren't doing right, as opposed to focus on what we are doing. What we're doing wrong, as opposed to focusing on what we did right. So a good practice would be when you wake up in the morning and you're in front of the mirror and you're brushing your teeth, instead of thinking about, oh, well, my eyes don't look right, or I got a little pimple here, or I need to go to the dentist, start thinking of some good things like, I like this about myself. I like the way that I do this. I like the fact that I'm open enough with myself to even think about these things, because believe it or not, that takes strength. The hardest thing is to open up and talk to yourself. You can talk to a million people, but when you put yourself in front of that mirror, that is your toughest critic, because you can't lie to the mirror. But you can also affirm the good things that you have done. You know, the fact that you're still here, the fact that you're still fighting. Like, a fighting person is a strong person in my mind, and that means that's positivity seeping out of you anyway, because you're telling yourself, I'm not giving up. I'm not done with whatever this is. And I'm willing to go toe-to-toe with whatever negative thought has trying to infiltrate and affect my well-being, because it's all about your well-being. So you have to put something in that well so you can feel well, and you can be the person you're supposed to be, which is this positive reflection of what God is. Like, we weren't put here to be miserable and struggle. We're put here to learn. We're put here to grow. Some of us were put here to help others get on that path, but you have to help yourself first, and you start with positive affirmations.
That is awesome, Shannon.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything they want to
Yeah.
add?
one of the things that I started doing, like today, I got up and I cleaned my living room, right? Like my house is a mess right now because like I've been right there with you in terms of like being in a debilitating depression. One is recognizing that, sometimes I need a little bit more help than just therapy. I need my medication, so that is important. Positive affirmations are also important. So one of the things that I'm starting to do is put post-it notes in places where I know I'm gonna visit. If I gotta go to the bathroom, I know I'm gonna brush my teeth, I know I'm gonna use the bathroom. So I put positive affirmations in places where I know I'm gonna visit in my house. I know I'm going to go to the refrigerator. So I put something on the refrigerator. I know I'm going to go make some coffee. So I put something near the coffee maker, so something to just remind myself that I'm not the bad person that my mind makes me out to be, because I've done a whole lot of good in the world for a whole lot of different people, but it's difficult for me to focus on that. It's much easier for me to focus on my mistakes because I think that that's something that we all do. It's normal to think like that. What isn't normal is allowing those thoughts to take over, allowing those thoughts to be in the front seat instead of in the back seat as a passenger, because they always gonna be, like I'm never gonna get rid of the bad thoughts. They're always gonna be, but thoughts are not facts. So that's one of the things I've had to learn is that my thoughts are not facts, right? They're just thoughts. And a thought is only temporary. It's gonna be in there, and then it's gonna pass right on. So that's something that has been helpful for me, as well as meditation.
I think that's wonderful too. And I want everybody to realize too, it's also understanding who your father is. So for me, it was that same thing, coming up as a Jehovah's Witness. Y'all, that was rough.
Oh, you were a JW?
Yes, I was.
Oh, Shannon, I know all about the JW.
So, I mean, the narrative that you hear, if you don't know God, like as love, all you hear is you're going to hell for everything you do
Yes,
if you
you are.
don't do this. But it
Right.
takes you taking time to actually learn God for real and learn that what his grace is and what his mercy is, and understanding his love. He wants everybody to win. He's not out to burn nobody. For real, for real. God's whole purpose of creating you was so you win. So it is getting out of that head. I think for me, it was learning to forgive myself for for even when I failed or made bad decisions, to say, okay, I didn't do great, but it's okay. So I want to talk to you guys when it comes to deciding to get into therapy. What are the steps that you suggest to people to get started? I mean, to make the first step in choosing a therapist. How do you decide who you need to
What I
see?
would say is you want to find someone like Dwan was saying that's a good fit for you. And like you were saying, T, it could take a couple of tries, because we're just people. Therapists are not perfect. As much as we like to, put our capes on and everything, we're not perfect. We're not, God. So therefore, we're just people. And so a therapy is relationship, right? So like Dewan and I have a therapeutic relationship, as he mentioned earlier, right? So anytime you're in relation to anything, you are in a relationship, right? So you want to honor all your relationships. Well, I'll speak for myself. I want to honor all my relationships. And so I want to make sure that whoever I'm in relation with and is surrounding me, whether it be clients, friends, family, whoever, that it's a good fit, and that we're in right relations. And so, one of the things that people can do, the thing that I would suggest and how I think Dewan found me, was going on psychologytoday.com, type in your address and see who pulls up. And I'm on there. There's a bunch of profile pictures, and we all have little bios and tell you about ourselves and our background and our philosophies. And I would say that that's a good way to start for everybody. That's how I found my daughter's therapist. I went on Psychology Today, and I have a therapist too. I found her on the same one. So, and I have another one. I'm actually doing hypnotherapy. So I have a hypnotherapist that I am working with because I'm doing it myself for my clients as well. Dewan, did you want to jump in and say anything else about that?
Yeah, I think it's important also to start small. I mentioned earlier, that I got up today and I living room, so you can't eat an elephant in one setting. So I think it's important to set smart goals and be realistic in your therapeutic goals, and realize that it's okay to not be ready to talk about everything. Everybody's not going to be like me, be an open book and be ready to have these sort of open discussions about these sorts of topics, publicly. And so I think that that's okay to kind of recognize that if you only want to talk about one thing, that's okay. It's okay to start small and not beat up on yourself for not being fully open, because it is a relationship. It's probably going to be a little scary, because it's a stranger that you're talking to, and you're talking about your deepest, darkest secrets and your deepest, darkest emotions, so it may be a little daunting and scary, to recognize that that's okay as well. I think is important, but just start small. And as Tina mentioned, some signs that I would suggest in terms of it not being a good relationship is if you feel judged by the person. For me, like, I've had to change providers because I felt judgment from that other person, and I'm there to heal. I'm not there to add on top of the trauma I'm
Come
already.
on.
So
Right.
so if I feel that there are some signs, pay attention to your gut. It would be what I would say.
And another question, how can you tell if you need a psychiatrist, psychologist, a therapist? How do you tell?
Laura. LCSW soon to be.
What was the question again? Can you repeat it?
How do you tell what you need? A therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist? How do you know who it is you need?
A lot, right?
I would say if you're struggling like with anxiety, with maybe depression, with like intrusive thoughts, then start first with a therapist, and then a therapist will see if you need, a psychiatric evaluation. And so if you feel like you have mood swings, if you find yourself in a manic episode, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're depressed, right? So ups and downs and things like that. It's like really increasing your self-awareness, like pay attention to what you're thinking, pay attention to how you're feeling, right? But we're not trained to do that, or we don't learn to do that, right? So it's like really asking yourself, what do I need right now? What am I experiencing right now? What am I thinking? Why is it that I find myself isolating a lot? Do I have social anxiety, right? Things like that. Then, okay, definitely see a therapist. And then the therapist will lead you to a psychiatric evaluation to kind of further assess if it's bipolar, if it's maybe depression,
I had a therapist and a psychiatrist, so I had to be medicated and talked to.
And just so you know, and that's very common too. There's a whole stigma and shame around the medication. That's a whole other thing, and I agree with what Laura says. With therapy, what you want to do is you want to start off with therapy first. Best practice is what we call it. Best practice in therapy is you want to start off first with a therapist. The therapist, like Laura said, will then recommend you if you need medication. You may not need medication. There's alternative treatments to depression now. I use a light box, right? You go under this light box and you put your head in. It's like a tanning bed for your head, and in 30 minutes you're better. It's called the Dream Spa. There's TMS, I'm going to mess it up. TMS, I'll just call it that. But they do electrical stimulation on your brain. So there's many other forms, and they have alternative psychiatrists, which is in my program what I work with. I work with alternative medications, and then I also have traditional psychiatrists too, that I can refer out to. But the important thing too is, like, I'm a social worker, right? So Laura and I are social workers. Shannon's a psychologist. We're all therapists. It doesn't matter. So don't get hung up on like the psychologist versus the counselor versus social worker versus therapist. We're all the same. We don't prescribe medicine. We see people and we talk to them. Right. A psychiatrist prescribes medicine. And what's funny is, right, my clients will come in and tell me, oh, I have the worst therapist. I'm like, why? Oh, because they only talk to me for like, they talk to me one time for an hour, and then after that, it's only 15 minutes. I'm like,
Right.
that's a psychiatrist. They're only supposed
Right.
to see you for an hour, and
Right.
then it's a 15-minute medication management
That's
appointment.
it.
And that's it. They're not supposed to, and that's how I know they're not seeing a therapist, but they thought they were seeing a therapist. So I understand how for the average person, it can be so confusing as like, where do I even start? You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you brought that up to you, and we had an opportunity to clarify that and also talk about the stigma. And I want to just briefly touch on my soapbox about the side effects of antidepressants, because the side effects of antidepressants are suicidality, feeling worse. And so what can happen sometimes is a person who is suicidal has what we call lack of motivation. Like, you don't feel like doing anything. So the motivation that it would take the energy that it would take to even go and do something, to try to put a plan together to end your life, right? It takes energy to do that. If you don't have the energy, you're not going to do that. So in essence, your depression is saving you from ending your life. So what happens is some people get on these antidepressants, and then boom, they have just enough energy to go complete the suicidal plan. And so I always say both, and like, do what works for you. Medication can be helpful. They have side effects. And one things that I can tell you is, being a therapist for 20 years, people keep coming into me and telling me they have to up their antidepressants. And I keep going, if antidepressants work so well, why are we constantly having to adjust the medication, you know? But that's just my soapbox. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's a good point to bring out too. Like I said, I had to be on medication for years. I've been off of medication for 17 plus, so I don't take any medications. But it was also changing the narrative in my head.
Yes.
So I had power and control over. No, I ain't gonna believe that about me. You know. So we got more questions, guys. Okay, Nessa, she said it. Oh, Nessa, you had to write a book today, huh? Uh, I had a knee replacement in the 29th, and my uncle, aunt, two cousins, pastor. Oh, Lord Jesus, are the only people that called me back. My daughter stayed with me for a month. Calls. I guess she's asking. She doesn't feel she's supported. And does she have a right to be angry because nobody's checking on her?
I'm gonna let Shannon or Laura take that one.
I'm sorry, what was your question? I
I
couldn't hear.
guess she's basically saying she had surgery and she has no support system. So nobody really has followed up with checking on her to make sure she's okay. Her church family or her regular family or friends. Why she just want to know, why doesn't she have the right to be angry? Because nobody's checking on her.
So is she feeling that she does not have the right to be angry? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think maybe they're telling her she shouldn't be getting mad, but she thinks she has a right to be mad because nobody's checking on her.
Nobody's even calling to check on her. That's ridiculous.
I think she has every right to be angry and just kind of question her support system, right? Because that's what they're there for, to make sure that she's safe, that she's okay, that she's being taken care of. And so absolutely, I would say question those support systems and reach out to the best of your ability. Reach out to your community, to your neighbors.
Yeah.
I would say do that.
For me, I've been that person. I've had to flip those thoughts on their head though, right? So I've had to lead with love and lead with grace in those sorts of situations, because one, I was born alone, I'm gonna die alone.
Right.
What's important for me is to recognize that I felt those same feelings. My mom and them ain't calling me. I'm seeing them interact on Facebook. That's pissing me off.
Yep.
Like, all of these different things are happening, right? But then I had to realize, well, I'm way up here in Illinois. My family's in a whole nother state. You interact with people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. So if your family are further away and you're in one place and they're in another, it's normal for them to interact with people that they see on a regular basis. It's normal for them to call each other if they're interacting with each other on a normal basis. So I've had to recognize that first off. I've had to also recognize that they have families, they have jobs. I'm the one that's depressed. I'm the one that's isolated. I'm the one that's, not putting myself out there. So, I've had to train myself it's okay for me to reach out to them and to not expect a call back. It's okay for me to be the one that's constantly looking, because I felt like I was building a bridge to nowhere. I'm building a bridge and ain't nobody building it back the other direction to me. Right. But I've had to learn that it's okay. I'm still here. I'm still actually okay. Because with that person not being here with me, I can't, I'm not bringing them into my therapist with me. Right. Even though they may need therapy themselves too.
Right.
Into that office with me. My healing is my responsibility.
Gotcha.
It's not on them. So that's what I've had to learn how to deal with that. Is because it is very upsetting. It is very isolating. You feel alone, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think for me, it's more empowering to understand that I can deal with this on my own and that I don't need them, because again, to me, that's codependency, right? Like,
Right.
to have these people in order for me to heal, when that ain't the truth. That's what my mind is telling me. My mind is telling me that I got to have all of these people. I got to have 100,000 people. Everybody got to be my friend, when that ain't the truth. Once I'm whole and once I build it, those people will come back. When I call my sister, I still know she loved me. Oh, she tell me she loved me every time she talked to me. When I see her, it's not like nothing ever changed. So I have to stop these negative thoughts that these people don't care about me when I know that they do. How do I know that they do? Because they tell me that I do when I do talk to them. So I don't believe them when they say that they love me, instead of me trying to fit into my head that they don't, because that's what my mind wants to tell me. My mind wants to tell me that I'm not loved. My
Right.
mind wants to tell me that these people don't like me and that I deserve to be alone. Right? But that's not the truth.
And I think another thing before we get to the next question is what I want to share with my truth. When you're going through your highs and your lows, you can be a lot for everybody around you. And if they
That
don't
part.
understand what's going on, naturally, oh no, not today. That's gonna happen. Oh, I can't, that's too much. I can't deal with that. So we have to grace with that too. I know that was a lot. Me and my mother were both having highs and lows together. So
Yeah.
we that right there was
That's happening right now, like literally. So I understand.
only Jesus. Jesus kept me from killing her and her from killing me.
Oh, no.
We was
All
both
right.
on medication and still we were too much for each other. So we have to give grace for that too. It doesn't mean that they don't love you or that
Right.
they don't want to be a part.
They don't care.
Right. It's just that you are a lot.
And sometimes people just get caught up in their own lives. Like we're all
Yeah.
so busy, especially now with like the way life is now, compared to back in my day, years ago, you're expected to be plugged into work and everything 24/7, and like it consumes us. So, it's not a lot of times that people don't care, because I used to say, oh, my brother doesn't call in and check on me. That's not necessarily his thing that he's going to do, but doesn't mean he doesn't love me. You know what I mean? So he shows it in different ways. And that kind of goes back to the book, if anybody's heard of it, The 5 Love Languages, which talks about like how people express and receive love, and how it can be different, how we give love and how we, receive it. So I think that's the thing. Also, just wanted to touch on something too. You mentioned family and how hard it is for the family. There is I have to do the plug. There is a organization called NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. Taraji P. Henson is the ambassador of NAMI. So I'm a member of NAMI. So Taraji also has her own company, which I must mention. It's the Boris Lawrence Henderson Foundation. She started after her father, who died. He was a war veteran, and he suffered from PTSD and extremes like that. And so she's actually working with myself and other people to try to get Black therapists, into the community. She has scholarships, which I hope to have one day, to send people to school to become therapists, African Americans, people of color, and erase the stigma. And she also wants to get mental health in schools. And that's where her vision and my vision of my company align as well.
Hey, Danny, if you get a chance, can you look up the information for NAMI too? When I first started going to therapy, I was attending a group. So it is a great thing. Girl, I done been in everything.
Yes, you have to be.
I had to find my balance to get there. There was another question by Sergio. He asked,
Sergio,
how do you see God as Father when your perspective of a father has been damaged? Another Puerto Rican.
Laura, take it away.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, just remembering that, men and women, we all have that sinful nature. We just do. No matter how much we love the Lord, no matter how knowledgeable we are, we will fall short of the glory of God. We are imperfect creatures in a fallen world, so just remembering to give your family members grace, right? They are imperfect people in an imperfect world. And so, yeah, I mean, it's very, very easy to like fall into that trap. And it's a challenge, absolutely, to say, well, wait a minute, my father was cruel to me, or maybe neglected me, wasn't there for me. So, wow, Jesus Christ, I mean, it's a challenge, right? And so just remembering that we live in a fallen world and we are imperfect creatures and we're not going to get it right, right? So offering grace.
I think another thing that's important, thank you. I think another thing that's important for me is understanding if you're a father, are you your father? If you're not your father, build upon that image of who God is for you, of who God the Father is for you. If you are a good father and a good husband to your family, you could use that to build upon who you think God is. Because again, we go off what we're taught, right? And you're taught that God is this vengeful, hateful person, but that's not who God is. God is love, and that's it. The greatest commandment in the Bible is not the Ten Commandments. Is when the disciple asked God, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, love. What is it? Love yourself, love your neighbor as you love thyself.
Right. He says, love me with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole spirit.
Exactly. So love that's all. That's the great commandment. So if you lead with love, build upon that as your foundation for who God the Father is. Shannon, you look like you had something to say.
Well, I just wanted to touch on what she said. She said, "How could you love God as your father when your representation of a father is tainted?" And I would just say, and Tina could attest to this, I had an epiphany years ago when I was talking to my older brother about my mom, and because she had gone through some things, I had to explain to him, "You've never met her. You met someone that was damaged who happened to have children."
Yeah.
And I think as children we forget that our parents are humans.
Yes.
Like, and they come with flaws and they come with insecurities and they come with things they need to work on as well. But all we see is this superhero that's supposed to be perfect. Right. And then when that image of our parents is shattered, it does something to you until you get to a place where you understand, you know what? I'm looking at another human who happened to have the privilege of bringing me into this world because that was their job, but they're still not perfect. And if I look at them as a perfect person, then I'm going to judge them wrong. And internally, I'm going to judge myself wrong because I'm going to say, if this person is my parent is not perfect, then what does that say about me? But once we
Wow.
come to understand that none of us are perfect and we all have flaws, we all are infallible, and we all are trying to get to this place that we call perfection, which is unrealistic.
Right.
We're never going to get perfect. What we're going to do is progress. So once we get progress, then we'll understand more.
That is so true, Shannon. Oh my gosh. And you just reminded me of that whole conversation. My dad was abusive and an alcoholic. So I didn't know him, and I didn't know a man to be loving or caring or nurturing. I didn't meet my dad till a month and a half before he died.
Mm.
Because he was no longer drinking. Um, and he actually talked for the first time in the years that I had been with him. My dad never talked. He never talked. So when we found out he was dying of bone cancer, his last month and a half in the hospice, I stayed up there with him, and he never slept because he wanted to have conversations.
Mm.
And I was like, all these things you telling me about how you felt about me, you never shared with me my whole childhood.
Ugh.
And I felt, you know, I felt cheated because I just learned him and he died on me.
Oh.
So we do have to give grace once again, like Mr. Walsh was saying, because once again, hurt people hurt people. If they haven't been taught how to love by a father or mother, how can they love like a father and mother, especially if they're not discussing it? Because once again, as an ethnic group, we don't share. I
Mm.
mean, we don't talk about what goes on in the house. I mean, there was incest in my family. There was molestation,
Mm.
but it was never dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Never dealt with.
Wow.
Yeah, mine too.
So yeah, that's crazy. Danny, you said there was one more question. Did I miss it? Oh, Miss Francis again. That's why I feel I'm a burden, because those around me just don't know what to say. So I feel when I enter the room, they may be feeling overwhelmed. Just hoping today I'm not sad.
That's not about you though, Francis. That's really about them not knowing what to say. It's really people get uncomfortable, very uncomfortable when trauma is involved or loss. I would just say people don't know how to respond. They don't know what to say. They don't want to bring it up because they don't want you to feel bad, or they don't know what to do. It's like walking on eggshells around you. So, I would suggest maybe not taking it so personally and making it about you, and make it where it needs to go, put it back on them. And that it's like you said, they're uncomfortable, right? They don't know what to say. That doesn't mean that that you're a burden because they don't know what to say.
And I'll vouch for that as well. I think for me, my uncomfortableness was that I tend to have flashbacks
Mm.
when I'm around somebody that's going through what I feel like I've walked past.
Yeah.
It can be a trigger for me. So
Yes.
that's where I have to put a boundary up and say, hey, today I can't do that. So, but I think honestly too, not telling the truth and lying, I'm fine. I'm okay. That's not healthy either.
That part. Yeah.
For
So
me, I people please a lot. So and what with people pleasing comes projection.
Mm.
So I like to think that I know what the other person is thinking
Mm.
without even asking them. I don't give them the respect to say, "Hey, how are you feeling?" or "What do you think about this?" or you know, uh, it could be quite possible that you're doing what I do. Which is think that the other people are thinking about you when they could be thinking about something completely different. So I think that could be a possibility. And most recently, what happened to me, which was kind of eye opener, was that I had a therapist suggest family therapy. Is this is this someone that you want to have involved in your treatment? And very few therapists had ever asked me that before. I'm like, what? Like that's an actual option. So maybe putting it out there for your family to see if it's something that they would be willing to do together. And so that y'all can heal together, and you could have kind of a neutral party be involved in that conversation. And that's happened before in the past, where because oftentimes when you try to have these sorts of conversations with family and it's involving trauma, it can get very heated. Emotions are high, and when emotions are high, people have a tendency to shut down. So I'm busy trying to think about my response, that I'm no longer listening to the words that come out of your mouth, because I'm too worried about, okay, how I'm a reader after this. How I'm gonna get it together after this, And so at this point, we're not having an argument. We're no longer having a conversation. So having a third party be involved, to where that person can be like, well, no, I don't think you understood what the other person was saying. I don't think you quite grasped what they were talking about, right? That would be my suggestion to it.
That's good. Guys, this has been a great conversation. And I think the honesty, like I said, Miss Francis, even in the church house, we are so good at saying, how you doing? Well, I'm blessed and how you doing? Girl, I was just arguing with my husband outside the church. He was getting all kind of clapbacks. We got to learn that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a day where you ain't got it all together,
Right.
and you should feel like, especially when you walk in the church, that's supposed to be the safe place. I keep telling everybody, it's a hospital. What do you think a hospital's got in it? Sick people. Come on.
Right.
There's
Right.
people needing treatment. So it's okay. And if we learn how to heal and deal with things, we'll all get better together. So I applaud you for being in the school, Shannon, and working with children, because there's a lot of conversations or hidden things that are going on, or even within the school. In all honesty, guys, I don't even know how to contend with this. I have biracial children, and they told me that now that they're in their 30s, that it was really hard growing up because they had identity crisis.
Yep.
I said, you never told me none of this. What are you talking about? So, I mean, do you have conversations like that, Shannon, with any of your kids in school, where there's things going on with them that they don't feel comfortable enough to share with their parents?
Not at the school. Fortunately, the children I deal with, they're 3 to 6 year olds, so they're
Oh,
not even on the
bless your
mind
heart.
frame of that. But when I was working at the hospital as a counselor, a lot of those things came up. You would see someone in there and they had a episode, and then they were in there, and I was running a group, and whatever particular topic came up that day was when some of them decided to open up, and it's like I'm getting attacked from all sides. Like you said, if you're biracial, you get attacked from this side because you're not this enough, and this side gets attacked because you're not that enough, and then you're stuck in the middle and you're confused, and you're like, well, where do I lean? Like, I want to embrace all of me because it's unfair to claim one side of myself, because that would be a dishonor to a parent or just a nationality. But the overall root is we're all one. But
Yes,
while we're stuck on these label-based things, you feel like you have to be a part of some group. And I choose not to subscribe to that. I always say I look past that. We're all people. We look different because we look different. Like a tiger looks different than a lion, and a lion looks different than a jaguar, but they're all still cats. They're all still felines. They all still have claws, and if you approach them the wrong way, they'll all scratch you. It's not different because this one has stripes and this one's solid. And I think we're the only species of animal that get so stuck up on the physical appearance that we forget on
come
the
on,
inside we're all the same.
come on. I
So
think if we could see
Yeah.
beyond that, I mean, even I appreciate you, even like I said, sharing even about your sexuality. I think we all forget that too. It's not my job to sit. I'm not the judge, jury, and the condemner. I have no heaven or hell to put you in. And my children's godmom, she's a lesbian. but I trust her with my kids because I know her heart, with where she is. And I know a lot of the trauma and things that have manifested in her life. And I think we got to get to a place, people, where we have conversations with everybody and stop sitting in that judgment seat so that we stop damaging one another. And we can have hard conversations even when we need to have them, to be open, as a community as a whole. So my hat's off to all of you guys for what you do. I hope you all have therapists yourself.
I certainly do.
And because I know that taking on that kind of mental, man, that says a lot about you. And I read your resume, bruh. What you do, man, hats off to you too, bruh. I appreciate you. Keep
Thank
fighting for the community and standing for what's righteous and what's just. Guys, I have ran over my time actually before they kicked me off the television network. I want to kind of wrap it up. So, guys, I want people to be able to reach out to you, guys, if they need to. Are you willing to work with people outside of your state? Because all of you guys are in Illinois. By the way, guys, I forgot to tell y'all that.
Well, we can't practice outside of our license. It's illegal. So
Okay.
that's why I said probably if you're in Illinois, give us a call. And T, I can give you the number if you want.
You can get Danny's listening. He'll type it up real quick.
Okay, it's 224-366-0291. That's my number. So it'll come to me.
224-036
224-366
366
0291.
0291. Y'all, if you're in Illinois, Tina's number is 224-366-0291. Danny, did you catch it that time? If not, he'll get it. We also we're posting up, you guys, if you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're struggling with depression, severe depression, if you have issues with overeating, not sleeping well, being
Domestic
bullied, domestic violence, we're putting up some numbers as well, for you guys to reach out. The number for NAMI, we'll put that up as well. I want you guys to trust that Jesus is not going to burn you up in no hellfire if you reach out to a therapist. Everybody forgets this. Hello, somebody. Jesus was a counselor. Boom.
Oh, my word.
Jesus was a counselor.
He was.
Meditations in the Bible.
And he says that. So come on. Hello. He's gave you a source. So, and God anoints people to be able to do this. These people can help you make sense of whatever's going on. And I'm telling y'all, I had to learn that. I had to unlearn some false narratives too from the church, that it was okay, and it's okay not to be okay. That's the whole reason we need to have understanding of why we think or perceive things the way we do.
And I just
You
want to say
guys,
real quick, it's really important because there are faith-based counselors like myself and Laura who specifically do Christian counseling or whatever your faith is. I can do that, counseling with you. So that's one thing we had to point out.
That's right.
So see, guys, there's somebody, and this is my goal. This is what I advocate. All you churches that are open in the name of Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, you need to have some type of counseling or mental management program or something within the church. I think ministers need to take some type of therapy class or counseling school so that you know how to counsel effectively those that deal with issues. And when it's above you, go ahead and admit it's above you and send them to a specialist that's licensed. I'm all for that. That's what I'm preaching. That's what I'm advocating for with every church. If you stand for Christ, then come on, be for real. Everybody's got an assignment. We all can't be the head, tail, stomach, neck. We stay in your lane, mind your business. Amen.
Right.
All right. So, guys, any last words before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you so much, T, for having us on. And I want to say thank you to Shannon, Dwan, and Laura for joining me. Jennifer Bell was going to come on, but she was at work, so unfortunately she couldn't be here. But she's here with us in spirit.
Oh, yeah. Tell her I said, hey.
I will tell her.
Shannon, it was nice to meet you. And
Nice to
Laura,
meet you as
my
well.
feelings is hurt that you don't remember me, but it's well.
I was going
I
to say
love
thank
you
you for the
anyway.
invite. I appreciate it.
Thanks
I
for having
appreciate
me.
Tina for thinking of you guys. When I said, hey, Tina, you want to come on? She's like, yeah, and I'm going to bring. I was like, what? Okay. So I would like if at some point later on, you guys, if you don't mind, if I bring you back in a few
Sure.
months.
Absolutely.
And we
Sure,
can,
this was so much
Absolutely, we
fun.
love it.
I
I'd love to come
appreciate
back.
it.
I don't want to speak for them.
No,
I
absolutely.
appreciate it. So, guys, this broadcast is going to be posted to my page, of course, all week. I pin it to the top of my page.
Okay.
Make sure if you did not get to start from the beginning, you go back and watch the replay. It's going to be
Yes.
up here all week, and I'm quite sure I'll be sharing this frequently because this was just too good, and I know there's somebody that needs it. Once again, I want to thank our panelists for joining us. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it is your time to shine with me, your hostess, Prophetess T. And in the words of my favorite vegan, honey, you go on and have yourself a good day. And if you can't, don't go messing up nobody else's. You guys be blessed. Have a great and prosperous weekend.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You as well.
We thank you for tuning in to I've Got Favor, where it's your time to shine with Prophetess T.